231 Giving chicken soup. Zhang Li's inspection had ended, but he wasn't in a hurry to go back. Because the order date for the chili sauce was a week later, he said that he would wait for the delivery and check it himself. Therefore, in the past 2 days, Zhang Li traveled from the county city to the village after sunrise and from the village to the county city after sunset. During the day, he followed Yu Bing to the factory. In Yu Bing's office, Zhang Li placed a thermal lunchbox on Yu Bing's desk and said with heartache, "Yu Bing, I specifically went to the state-owned restaurant to get someone to make chicken soup for you. You're so small and thin, so you have to nourish yourself." Ever since he signed the order after breakfast that day, Zhang Li's address of Yu Bing had changed from Miss Yu to her name. 2 days ago, Zhang Li started giving her watches and skincare products, but Yu Bing had refused them on the grounds that they were too expensive. This courting style had never failed Zhang Li before. Unexpectedly, Yu Bing completely changed his previous understanding. However, Zhang Li wasn't discouraged. He changed his pursuit method to giving her supplements instead. As Yu Bing looked at Zhang Li, who came to her every day, she suddenly felt a little glad that the factory director's office was completely independent. Outsiders only thought that Zhang Li was worried about the order and personally came to keep an eye on it. Otherwise, if others saw their interaction, she wouldn't be able to explain herself. Yu Bing believed that she would definitely become the #1 topic in the village. Perhaps there would be rumors that the two of them were in a relationship. Yu Bing looked at Zhang Li, who was still so persistent after being rejected by her for 2 days, and sighed. How did she catch the eye of this young master? Whatever it was, she could change. Due to the other party's status as a rich patron, Yu Bing said patiently, "Mr. Zhang, I'll buy whatever I want to eat myself. I won't drink this soup. Please don't give me anything else." Seeing this, Zhang Li could only use her trump card. "I'm giving it to you no matter what. If you don't want to drink it, throw it away." Under normal circumstances, when a girl heard this, she would accept it because she didn't want to waste it. However, Yu Bing's reaction was unexpected. When Yu Bing heard this, she smiled and said, "Mr. Zhang, this is yours, so I won't keep it for you. However, if you want to throw it away, I can do it for you. Do you need me to?" Zhang Li didn't relent. "It's up to you." Without another word, Yu Bing took the thermos box and walked out. When Zhang Li saw this, he immediately went forward to stop her. "Are you really going to dump it? This is meat. Many people can't even afford to eat rice." Although Zhang Li's family was rich, his parents had experienced war, where it was common for people to starve and freeze on the battlefield. Therefore, the Zhang family had a family motto that they couldn't waste food. Seeing that Yu Bing was so stubborn, Zhang Li could only compromise and take back the thermos box. "All right, I'll eat it myself. Yu Bing, it's been so many days. I don't believe you can't tell that I'm pursuing you. Are you really not going to give me a chance?" Yu Bing glanced at Zhang Li. "Mr. Zhang, I don't plan to find a partner yet. Moreover, we're not from the same world. This factory is still in debt. I promised the leaders that if this project doesn't succeed, I'll have to bear these debts myself." Zhang Li smiled when he heard this. Other things aside, he had a lot of money. Zhang Li looked at Yu Bing affectionately and said in a seductive tone, "If that day really comes, I can help my girlfriend." Yu Bing replied with a fake smile, "Thank you for your kind intentions, Mr. Zhang. If you really want to help me, why don't you place more orders with our factory? I hope our products can satisfy you and that we can sign a long-term contract. After all, this is a win-win situation." The more Yu Bing refused, the more determined Zhang Li was to win her over. This was the first time he had met a girl like Yu Bing. Yu Bing was independent, intelligent, and quick-witted. She was domineering, but also gentle. She also fought hard for the interests of the factory during negotiations. She gave him a vivacious impression. She was very different from those girls who only knew how to rely on their families and play around all day long. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 232 Differential Treatment. Zhang Li stared at Yu Bing and smiled slightly as he said firmly, "Yu Bing, I won't give up." Yu Bing was helpless and could only express her stance again. "Mr. Zhang, we're completely unsuitable. Don't waste your time on me." Yu Bing had no intention of getting married in this life. She just wanted to earn money. After the country opened up the market, she would earn a lot of money and achieve financial freedom. Then, she would travel around the world. Why would she want to find a man to serve and torture herself? In her previous life, Yu Bing had been schemed against by Yan Yan. In terms of relationships, she was relatively naive. Therefore, in the face of Zhang Li's pursuit, because she couldn't respond to it, she chose to reject him directly. She thought that blunt refusal would solve the problem. However, men's desires to conquer often arose from women's rejection. The more explicitly women refused, the more men couldn't let go. Many scheming women would play hard to get on purpose because they knew men had this mentality. Zhang Li raised her eyebrows and said nonchalantly, "You can dislike me, but you can't stop me from liking you." Xiaoxing entered the office as he spoke, but he didn't expect to see Zhang Li. Xiaoxing greeted him in confusion, "Mr. Zhang?" Xiaoxing knew that Zhang Li planned to leave after the goods were ready, but he thought that Zhang Li would wait in the county city. After all, he really couldn't think of anything in the village that would attract this noble young master's attention. Zhang Li smiled and replied, "Good morning. Don't be surprised. I've been coming every day recently because I want to pursue Yu Bing." When Xiaoxing heard Zhang Li's high-profile announcement, his heart skipped a beat. He immediately turned to look at Yu Bing, but when he saw her roll her eyes helplessly, he heaved a sigh of relief. Xiaoxing was a little happy and dejected. He was the only one who knew how outstanding Yu Bing was. However, with Yu Bing's hard efforts, she now had a larger platform to showcase her skills, allowing more people to see how outstanding Yu Bing was. Xiaoxing suddenly felt pressured. He hoped that he could become more powerful, but he didn't know why he had such thoughts. Thinking of this, Xiaoxing looked at Yu Bing and said, "There's progress regarding what you asked me to pay attention to previously." Yu Bing's eyes lit up. "What is it?" Seeing Yu Bing looking at him with a burning gaze, Xiaoxing couldn't help but glance at Zhang Li. He felt smug about this difference in treatment. "It's in the county city. I'll bring you there." Yu Bing didn't have any urgent work to do, so without another word, she found a large sack and folded it a few times before stuffing it into the cloth bag. Then, she followed Xiaoxing out. There were many documents in the factory director's office. As Yu Bing held the lock in her hand, she stared at Zhang Li, who was still inside. Then, she shook the lock in her hand to signal to him that she wanted to lock the door. Seeing Yu Bing's obvious difference in treatment, Zhang Li was furious. He could tell that Xiaoxing also liked Yu Bing. That smug look just now was simply a provocation. He couldn't admit defeat. "I happen to be returning to the county city, so I'll go with you guys," Zhang Li said as he walked out of the office. When he saw the bicycle parked beside the car in the factory courtyard, Zhang Li revealed a confident smile. Then, he turned around and made an inviting gesture to Yu Bing. "Yu Bing, can I have the honor of giving you a ride?" Xiaoxing smiled and went forward to unlock the bicycle. Yu Bing was thinking of making Zhang Li give up, so how could she sit on it? Hence, she smiled politely but aloofly at Zhang Li as she said, "Thank you, Mr. Zhang, but we still have something to do, so we won't waste your time." With that, Yu Bing sat in the back of the bicycle. Xiaoxing turned around to smile at Zhang Li. "Goodbye, Mr. Zhang." As Zhang Li watched the two of them leave, he was so angry that he kicked the tire. Force him to give up? Impossible. This was the first time Zhang Li had met a girl who he didn't know how to win over. He could only take things slowly. He had plenty of time anyway. All women were afraid of being pestered. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 233 All women were afraid of being pestered. Hence, on a rural road, passers-by saw a small car driving at the same speed as the bicycle beside it. Zhang Li followed the two of them to the county city. Xiaoxing had no intention of hiding their whereabouts from Zhang Li. To a certain extent, they were both doing things that were not allowed in this era. They were both rebels. Zhang Li looked at the dumpster-like place in front of him. There was a sign at the entrance of the courtyard with the words "Recycle Station." Zhang Li looked at the two people beside him and asked with a frown, "Are you guys here to pick up trash?" Yu Bing nodded without hesitation. She hoped that this dirty place could scare this big shot away. Yes. As expected, an indescribable expression appeared on Zhang Li's face. Xiaoxing followed Yu Bing through the door without hesitation. After greeting the old man guarding the recycling station, he walked in. The waste recycling station was completely different from the trash recycling station. The waste recycling station collected all kinds of household waste, while the trash recycling station was an open-air large-scale second-hand recycling station. However, there were also prohibited items that had been confiscated. However, most of them were confiscated items, and there was no lack of antique calligraphy and paintings. As long as someone's house had been searched, other than basic daily necessities, the other items in the house would be deemed to be prohibited items and thrown here. Therefore, there were all kinds of things here, but the truly valuable things had long been secretly taken away by bold thieves. The remaining things were not very valuable. Yu Bing wasn't looking for valuable items to sell, but high school books that had been thrown here. After 10 years of turmoil, the end of the next year would usher in a turning point, which was the resumption of the college entrance examination. In the past 10 years, education hasn't been taken seriously. There were 50 to 60 students in a class. The more serious the teacher was about supervising the students, the more likely their faces would be plastered on big character posters. especially when they encountered rebellious teenagers who liked to slander people. Big character posters refers to words in capital letters. At first, it was only used as a way to promote good ideas. However, some ambitious and scheming people gradually started to use it as a method to expose and criticize others. On the other hand, the so-called revelations were mostly groundless and taken out of context. The criticism was random, causing a large number of innocent scholars to be falsely accused and persecuted. It was under this thinking that the knowledge they learned in this decade was the most basic and simple, and couldn't be compared to the quality of knowledge acquired on campus 10 years ago. Yu Bing came here today to look for textbooks from many years ago. After Zhang Li followed them for a few steps in and saw the messy pile of things that emitted a faint stench, he really couldn't continue walking. However, when he saw the two of them in the distance, he made up his mind and covered his mouth and nose with his hand as he followed. The further back the things were placed in the recycling station, the older they were. Yu Bing and Xiaoxing stopped at the innermost area and began to search. Xiaoxing's family had encountered an accident before he finished junior high, so when Yu Bing was looking for books, she subconsciously paid attention to junior high books. Fortunately, these things were the most inconspicuous, so the two of them easily flipped through many of them. However, because it had been too long, after soaking in the rain, many of the books couldn't be read anymore. The books were also in different sets. In order to piece together a complete book and read it clearly, the two of them spent a lot of time. Fortunately, Yu Bing found a set of senior textbooks. The textbook was filled with all kinds of notes. It was obvious that this person was a top student. After Yu Bing flipped through it, on the blank space on the first page of the textbook, the words, Gao Yang, Class 1 of the 3rd year were written. His handwriting was bold and striking. Yu Bing looked at the words and muttered, Xiaoxing, if you see any books with Gao Yang's name, keep them all. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 234 Returning the Favor. Xiaoxing nodded when he heard this. Soon, he found 2 books. He raised the cover and asked, Yu Bing, are these 2 books useful? Yu Bing approached the few books Xiaoxing found. After taking a few casual glances, her eyes suddenly froze. Xiaoxing held an English-Chinese dictionary in his hand and a high school mathematics, physics, and chemistry exercise notebook that the other party had summarized. It was probably a summary that he had specially made to prepare for the college entrance examination, but it probably wasn't used because the college entrance examination had been canceled. Yu Bing touched Xiaoxing's upper arm in surprise. Then, she praised him excitedly, Xiaoxing, nice job. With these 2 books, I'll definitely get twice the result. Mathematics, physics, and chemistry were different from liberal arts, where one could get some points from memorizing. If one didn't have a scientific mindset and didn't really understand the logic behind it, once the questions changed, they wouldn't be able to solve the question. Xiaoxing looked at Yu Bing smile as he listened to her tell him how important these 2 books were. He didn't interrupt and only watched Yu Bing quietly with a smile. When Xiaoxing was asked by Yu Bing to help find books, he thought of the county's waste recycling station, so he established a good relationship with the old man here, so that they could sneak in, but he didn't ask Yu Bing what she wanted to do. In this era, knowledge wasn't valued. When conspirators explained that labor was the most honorable thing, they raised the status of workers and farmers to a high position, while intellectuals became the targets of belittling and suppression. Although these things were thrown here like trash, under normal circumstances, no one could take them out. If they wanted to transport these books out, they had to have some connections. Xiaoxing and Yu Bing placed the books they found on the ground and sorted them. Then, they chose 1 set of junior high books, 3 sets of high school books, and some other books as cover. Yu Bing took out the large sack in her bag and placed all the books in it. Although Zhang Li followed them to the back, he didn't climb up the pile of junk to help. He found an empty space nearby and stood there counting the ants on the ground. After waiting for 2 hours, he saw the 2 of them interacting intimately in the distance. He was anxious but helpless. Just as he was about to give up and climb up, Xiaoxing walked down with the sack. Zhang Li asked curiously, what were you guys looking for? Books? Zhang Li was far away and below, so he couldn't see clearly. Xiaoxing replied calmly, Yu Bing is preparing to set up a reading room in the village, so we chose some suitable books. Yu Bing pursed her lips and smiled when she heard this. Xiaoxing's words were true. She wanted to set up a reading room, and they did look for books. However, she had smuggled some other books with her at the bottom of the bag. When Zhang Li heard this plan, he couldn't help but praise himself for his good taste in women. In this era, many people looked down on intellectuals. Although this family was full of martial artists, they had always admired cultured people. Which of those scientists who served the country and the people were not intellectuals? Yu Bing's ideals were the same as his family's. It meant that her ideas resonated with his. The more Zhang Li looked at Yu Bing, the more pleasing she became to him. Yu Bing didn't expect that Zhang Li already felt resonance with her just based on a few words. Because Xiaoxing had a good relationship with the old man guarding the waist, the other party only flipped through the books casually. When he realized that they were only books and comics related to agriculture, he only accepted 1 yuan and let them go. Zhang Li wanted to show off, so he said, "It's already 1 in the afternoon, so let's go eat together." Yu Bing rejected him without hesitation with the excuse that she wasn't hungry. A meal at a restaurant was enough for her to eat 2 home-cooked meals with meat. Yu Bing wouldn't eat out unless she could get an order in exchange. She would rather go home hungry. Just as Yu Bing refused, her stomach growled. A blush crept onto Yu Bing's face. This physiological reaction that couldn't be controlled by her subjective consciousness made Yu Bing feel embarrassed. Xiaoxing suppressed the smile on his face. "Let me treat you to a bowl of noodles. You've been so busy recently, but you still took the time to teach Xiaoli, so I have to return the favor. Although it's not enough to repay your kindness, I hope you won't mind." When Yu Bing thought about how no matter how tired she was, she still held classes for Xiaoli at least twice a week, she accepted this treat with a clear conscience. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 235 Not a bad person. Zhang Li took a deep breath in exasperation. However, it didn't matter, since he still had a second move. The back of the bicycle is filled with books. Yu Bing, you might as well take my car. Otherwise, you'll have to walk back. Yu Bing looked at the large sack on the ground. The books inside weighed at least 60 to 70 pounds and were vertical, so it was indeed inconvenient for her to carry them. However, she said nonchalantly, "It's fine. It's just a few steps." Xiaoxing wanted to walk with Yu Bing, but Yu Bing's stomach began to growl again. Yu Bing was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a place to hide. Xiaoxing said to Yu Bing, "Come ride the bike. I'll run and push from behind. This way, it won't be too difficult for you to ride it." Seeing this, Zhang Li had no choice but to compromise. "Put the books in my trunk." After Yu Bing thought about it, she finally agreed. Zhang Li would just help them transport something a kilometer away. Even an ordinary friend would help. When they returned to S City with the goods, she would send him some snacks to return the favor. At this moment, a small incident happened in the factory. Jiang Chun was now considered a small leader in the factory. In order to fulfill the duties of her position and to not let others say that Yu Bing was playing favorites, she was basically the first to arrive every day and the last to leave after work. Today was no exception. At 12:15 p.m., after everyone left, she went around the courtyard to Production Room 2 and started patrolling. The 2 production rooms in the factory were connected through the disinfection room. Jiang Chun didn't find anything unusual after walking around, so she locked the door. At this moment, she heard a sound from the direction of the storeroom. Jiang Chun suspected that it was a rat. After all, rats had appeared before. She thought that it was about time to raise a cat. The warehouse was only 2 meters tall. There was a ventilation window in front and behind, but they were all surrounded by barbed wires. The other 4 places were sealed, leaving only a single door for entering and exiting. The workers had no idea how the rat had run in under their noses. The warehouse key was in the hands of Director Huang, who was in charge of the warehouse. Although Jiang Chun didn't have the key, she still planned to knock on the door a few times to see if she could scare the rat away. Huh? Director Huang didn't even lock the warehouse door after leaving? Jiang Chun was a little angry when she saw the lock hanging at the side. If someone with ulterior motives sneaked in and stole everything, it would affect the delivery time and they would have to pay heavy compensation. Seeing that the door wasn't locked, Jiang Chun decided to catch the rat. She saw a wooden stick beside the door, so she picked up the wooden stick and pushed the door open. When hunting a rat, she had to trap it inside first. Hence, as soon as she entered the warehouse, Jiang Chun turned around and closed the door. Just as she was about to turn around, a dagger was pressed against her neck, scaring Jiang Chun so much that she didn't dare to move. She said with a quivering voice, "If there's anything, let's talk it out. Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you, but you can't scream." When the man's deep and hoarse voice sounded in Jiang Chun's ear, although Jiang Chun was panicking, she could still hear the hint of weakness in the man's voice. However, her life was in his hands, so she didn't dare to do anything. She immediately promised, "I won't scream." Cui Jin pressed the wound on his abdomen as he leaned against the wall. He was already at the end of his rope. From what he had heard outside the door previously, this woman was responsible. At least, she had good character. As for whether she would keep her promise, he could only take a gamble. When Jiang Chun heard the sound behind her, she slowly turned around and saw a man with a buzz cut. He was wearing a tight black t-shirt, but his pants were camouflaged. His face was painted, and he looked very disheveled. When she saw that the man's fingers were bleeding, she knew that he was injured. Chui Jin endured the sleepiness caused by blood loss and stared at Jiang Chun as he said, I'm not a bad person. Please take me to a safe place secretly. I can't be discovered by anyone. When Jiang Chun saw the man's tough temperament, she thought of her uncle, who was a retired soldier. She could roughly guess the man's identity, but she wasn't sure. However, the man's gaze was very piercing and righteous. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Chun chose to trust her intuition. In this era, anyone would treat saving soldiers as an honorable thing. Since the other party wanted to hide his whereabouts, Jiang Chun guessed that he was on a secret mission. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 236 High School Textbook. Jiang Chun nodded without hesitation. Then follow me. With that, she placed Chui Jin's arm on her shoulder. Jiang Chun supported him as she walked towards the quiet path beside the factory carefully and listened to their surroundings attentively. Fortunately, as usual, she didn't encounter anyone along the way. Jiang Chun brought Chui Jin back to the kitchen and helped him sit on the hay pile against the wall. As Jiang Chun looked at the blood that kept flowing out from between her fingers, she said worriedly, Your blood keeps flowing. I'll go to the infirmary to get some medicine to stop the bleeding. Chui Jin hurriedly held Jiang Chun's hand and said with a frown, We can't let anyone know that you bought hemostatics. Otherwise, you and I will be in danger. Give me some plant ash. Jiang Chun hurriedly went to the stove to fill a bowl. Then, she entered the room and took 2 rolls of gauze straps. She placed the cold water that had been boiled in the morning beside Chui Jin. Chui Jin knew that this wasn't the best way to treat his wound, but they had limited conditions now. He endured the pain and tore open the cloth he had used to bandage the wound. Then, he washed the blood around the wound with cold water and placed a bowl of plant ash on the wound. However, he didn't have the strength to bandage it anymore, so Jiang Chun helped bandage the strap around Chui Jin. Chui Jin looked at Jiang Chun as he thanked her weakly. Thank you for believing me. Jiang Chun pursed her lips and said with a smile, I'll cook first. Lie down for a while. Noodles were easy to digest, so Jiang Chun prepared 2 bowls of noodles and even placed 2 eggs in Chui Jin's bowl. Chui Jin looked at the bowl of noodles in Jiang Chun's hand. 2 fried eggs were lying above the white noodles. Green onions and vegetables floated above the clear soup. The hot noodles were emitting a rich aroma, making Chui Jin, who hadn't eaten for a long time, swallow hard. Chui Jin took out 0.5 yuan from his pocket. Such a bowl of noodles would be sold for at least 0.3 yuan outside, and she had even given him bandages, so he still owed her. Hence, he handed it over awkwardly and said, This is all I have now. I'll make it up to you later. Jiang Chun waved her hand to reject him. It was her honor to be able to help a soldier that protected the country. How could she accept money? Besides, she could afford this. Hurry up and eat. With that, Jiang Chun placed the noodles on the small stool in front of Chui Jin and turned around to return to the table to eat her own noodles. Seeing this, Chui Jin didn't say anything else and started eating. Then, Jiang Chun washed the dishes. After glancing at Chui Jin, who was resting with his eyes closed, she tiptoed back to her room. Chui Jin opened his eyes when he heard Jiang Chun's footsteps. Miss, is there a deep mountain that no one has gone to nearby? Jiang Chun was stunned for a moment before replying, There are rumors that the back mountain behind my house is haunted, so no one goes there. Jiang Chun approached Chui Jin and asked, Where do you want to go? When Chui Jin heard the description, he felt that it was a good place to hide. Not to mention that he didn't believe that there were ghosts in the world. Even if there were, ghosts couldn't be more terrifying than humans. Hence, he nodded. I'm very weak now, so I'll have to trouble you to send me to the mountains. I don't need you to go deep into the mountains. I can walk further in myself. Jiang Chun frowned and asked, Are you worried that my family will discover you? With Chui Jin's taciturn personality, he usually only gave orders and never explained them. However, the girl in front of him wasn't his subordinate. If he didn't explain clearly, the other party might not help. That's one thing. Most importantly, here, it's very easy for me to be discovered by the person I want to hide from. Once I enter the mountain, he won't be able to do anything to me. I can also recuperate properly. When Jiang Chun heard this reason, she immediately nodded in agreement. On the other side, Yu Bing and the others had just finished eating. Zhang Li had been busy the entire morning, so he planned to rest in the county city in the afternoon and look for Yu Bing tomorrow. Zhang Li grabbed the sack from the trunk, but he didn't notice that there was a small hole at the bottom of the sack that was hooked to a small iron hook on the side of the carriage. Rip! When Yu Bing saw that a large hole was torn open under the sack, she hurriedly took a few steps forward and a few high school textbooks at the bottom fell out. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 237 Extremely Hungry. As Zhang Li looked at the scattered books, he was very puzzled, but he still said calmly, "Do you need to go through so much trouble? You could have just borrowed high school textbooks from those graduates, but you specifically came to the recycling station to find them. I'll send you 2 new sets after I return to S City." Yu Bing put the books back into the torn bag and replied with a look of disdain, "I have to return what I borrowed. It's expensive to buy new books. All these books are only worth a yuan." At this moment, Xiaoxing had already returned to the restaurant and asked for 2 ropes. He took the bag from Yu Bing and went forward to tie the tear. Then, he carried it to the back seat and tied it tightly with the rope. Although Zhang Li found their actions strange, he didn't think too much about it. After all, what Yu Bing had said just now made sense. No matter what, such a large bag of books couldn't be bought in a bookstore without at least 10 to 20 yuan. Because the back seat was already occupied by books, Yu Bing followed at the side while Xiaoxing pushed the cart in front. Xiaoxing was pretending to be calm just now. In fact, he was very flustered. After leaving the city and seeing that there was no one else on the way, he whispered to Yu Bing, "Is it okay that Zhang Li saw those books just now?" Yu Bing replied calmly, "Don't worry, having textbooks isn't against the law. It's just that the place where we bought the books is a little unconventional." After Xiaoxing thought about it, he agreed and felt that he was being a little paranoid. Yu Bing and Xiaoxing went to the village's school first and placed the books they had used as cover there. Then, Xiaoxing brought the remaining books home first while Yu Bing went to the factory. After work, Yu Bing and Jiang Chun returned home together. After entering the kitchen, Jiang Chun hurriedly began to wash the rice. She looked at Yu Bing, who was also in the kitchen, a little anxiously. Although she had burned the things at home that had accidentally been stained with blood, she was worried that Yu Bing would notice something. Hence, she tried her best to say in a calm tone, "Yu Bing, go back to your room and do your own work. I'll be done shortly." Because Yu Bing was usually busy, she didn't do many chores at home and left them all to Jiang Chun, but Jiang Chun never blamed her. Instead, Jiang Chun asked her to rest. Yu Bing felt that she had been spoiled by Jiang Chun. When Yu Bing heard Jiang Chun's words, she felt even more embarrassed. "I don't have anything on today, so I'll cook tonight. Go rest." After Yu Bing finished speaking, she saw something on the stove. She walked towards it and realized that it was money. Even if it was just 0.01 yuan, Jiang Chun's money would be wrapped in a handkerchief and placed in the innermost layer of her pocket. She was always afraid that she would lose the money, let alone 0.5 yuan. However, Yu Bing recalled that she hadn't approached the stove today. She picked up the money and turned to look at Jiang Chun as she asked in confusion, "Jiang Chun, why did you put your money on the stove?" At this moment, Jiang Chun was putting the rice into the lunchbox. She wasn't someone who left money out in random places, hence, she replied without looking up, "I didn't put money on the stove. There were only 2 people at home. If Yu Bing was sure that it wasn't hers, it must be Jiang Chun's." "Are you sure? I only had breakfast at the table this morning and didn't touch the stove. Did you put it there at noon?" Jiang Chun's hand paused when she suddenly remembered that the soldier had given her money at noon, but she had refused it. She turned to look at Yu Bing's hand. The value of the money was the same as what the soldier had given her, so Jiang Chun could only pretend that she had just remembered. "Oh. Yes. It's mine. I'm a little muddle-headed today." Yu Bing handed the money to Jiang Chun. "It's 0.5 yuan. Fortunately, it was left at home." Jiang Chun took it and smiled awkwardly before lowering her head to continue working. Yu Bing squatted under the stove and started a fire. Jiang Chun didn't know what reason she could find to send Yu Bing out. If she said too much, she was afraid that Yu Bing would become suspicious, so she could only act according to the situation. Half an hour later, they started having the meal. As Yu Bing looked at Jiang Chun's full box of white rice, she frowned and said, "Are you very hungry today?" Jiang Chun usually only ate half a bowl of rice, but in this situation, she could only nod and say, "Yes, I'm very hungry today." However, after Yu Bing put down her bowl and chopsticks and saw that Jiang Chun had only eaten a third of the meal, she realized that Jiang Chun seemed to be acting a little strange today, but she couldn't tell what it was. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 238 Delivering food. Eating, so she immediately said, "I'll wash them after eating later. Go do your work." Seeing that Jiang Chun was eating very slowly tonight, Yu Bing asked worriedly, "Jiang Chun, are you feeling unwell today?" Jiang Chun immediately denied it. "I'm fine. Do I look sick to you?" Yu Bing studied Jiang Chun carefully and shook her head. Jiang Chun knew that if she answered a few more questions, she would probably be exposed. Thinking of Yu Bing's visit to the county city this morning, she immediately changed the topic. "Where did you and Xiaoxing go this morning?" Yu Bing thought of her book and slapped her thigh. "I haven't retrieved my books yet." I went to buy books today. I have to go to the Xiao family's house later. Yu Bing thought that she might as well take this opportunity to mention the matter to Jiang Chun, so she leaned closer to Jiang Chun and said secretively, when I went to the city previously, I overheard a leader say that the college entrance examination might resume next year, so I specifically went to look for old high school textbooks today. Since I found out, I have to make preparations in advance. When Jiang Chun heard this, she looked out the door warily before asking in surprise, the college entrance examinations are really resuming? Yu Bing nodded firmly. Jiang Chun revealed a happy smile, but then she froze and said, "Sigh, wasn't there a similar rumor a few years ago?" There was no follow-up after that. I don't think we should get our hopes up. When Yu Bing heard this, her eyes darted around and she said, things are different this time. This time, a very high-ranking leader said it. Although I can't tell you who I heard it from, I can guarantee that it's definitely true. Jiang Chun knew that Yu Bing wasn't someone who believed in hearsay. If she wasn't 100% confident, she wouldn't be so certain, so Jiang Chun believed her. Seeing Jiang Chun's trusting expression, Yu Bing continued, I'll get the books later and teach Shaoli. When I come back, we'll study together. When Jiang Chun heard this, she immediately replied, don't wait anymore. Go now. Give Shaoli more lessons. I'll do the dishes. Jiang Chun had to hurry up. Otherwise, if Yu Bing didn't see her when she returned, she would have to continue making up excuses. When Yu Bing heard this, she stood up and went to the Xiao family's house. As soon as Jiang Chun left, she divided the side of the lunchbox she had eaten with clean chopsticks and finished her portion. She picked out the remaining vegetables and took out 5 eggs from her lunchbox. Then, she placed 10 sweet potatoes in the pot and steamed them. 10 minutes later, Jiang Chun took out a small bamboo basket and quickly placed the food in it before leaving the house. Jiang Chun didn't listen to Cui Jin, who said to place him at the entrance of the forest. Instead, she brought him to the deeper forest that she had accidentally entered previously. There was a very thin layer of miasma there. As long as one passed through it, the air further beyond it was normal. In an ancient book she had found at home in the past, Jiang Chun had read that eating garlic and burning vermicelli could prevent one from being affected by the miasma. Considering that Cui Jin had to hide his whereabouts, she specifically chose this place. With the natural barrier of miasma, ordinary people wouldn't take the initiative to approach. After Jiang Chun entered the mountain, she walked for half an hour and arrived at a dilapidated temple. This ancient temple had probably been abandoned for decades. This was the place Jiang Chun discovered after passing through the miasma. At this moment, the sun had completely set. In complete darkness, Jiang Chun hurriedly lit the kerosene lamp. Cui Jin was hiding behind the temple door. Before Jiang Chun entered, she knocked twice and shouted, "It's me." After greeting him, Jiang Chun pushed the door open. Through the dim yellow light, she could vaguely see Cui Jin's figure and she walked over. When Cui Jin, who was sitting on the ground, heard footsteps nearby, he took out his gun and assumed a defensive posture. After confirming that Jiang Chun was alone, Cui Jin relaxed. After Jiang Chun placed the kerosene lamp on the ground, she took out the candles and matches from the basket. These are for you to use as light. Use them sparingly. I'll go to the county city to buy 2 more on my day off in a few days. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 239 Writing a letter. She took out some food and continued, hurry up and eat. I only have 1 lunchbox. I have to take it back later. These are eggs and sweet potatoes. I can only come to deliver food to you once at night. My friend will definitely find out if I bring more. She's much smarter than me. After Jiang Chun blurted everything out, she realized that she had nagged him. When she looked up and saw the smile on Cui Jin's face, Jiang Chun blushed and smiled in embarrassment. I have a habit of nagging. I know it's a little annoying. No, I'm quite introverted, so it feels good to have someone to talk to. With that, Cui Jin picked up the lunchbox and started eating. After eating, Cui Jin smacked his lips to savor the aftertaste and praised, your culinary skills are quite good. Jiang Chun smiled when she heard this. My friend taught me how to cook. I didn't cook this well in the past. Cui Jin thought about how the other party had helped him so much, but he didn't even know the other party's name. He hurriedly asked, Miss, my friends call me Jin. I still don't know how to address you. Jiang Chun also introduced herself. My name is Jiang Chun. Cui Jin had been hiding and escaping today. In order to mislead the traitor, he didn't even know where he had escaped to, so he asked, Jiang Chun, what's the name of your village? He Mountain Village. Cui Jin recalled the topographic map of this area and silently calculated the distance. He realized that he was only more than 100 kilometers away. This time, Cui Jin brought a 5-person team out to capture a spy. At the final critical moment of the capture, a traitor appeared in the team, and the knife wound on his body was the other party's doing. Now that he was in a pinch, he didn't know what had happened to the team. The traitor wanted to kill him, so that the traitor could continue hiding, but now, he didn't know Cui Jin's exact situation. The traitor would definitely return to the army and fabricate a story to distort the truth about his disappearance. Or, the traitor would retreat in the shortest time possible after stealing secrets. Cui Jin knew that he couldn't let the other party continue to hide. Otherwise, if the military's important secrets were leaked, even his death wouldn't be enough for him to atone for it. He could only recuperate for another day at most before he had to leave. After pondering for a moment, he said to Jiang Chun, "You don't have to come over anymore. I'll leave tomorrow." Jiang Chun widened her eyes and asked in shock, "Your wound is so deep, but you're leaving after only a day? It'll be even worse if the wound gets infected." Cui Jin looked at the round-faced girl with almond-shaped eyes in front of him. At this moment, her eyes were shining. Cui Jin smiled and said in a low voice, "A day is already a lot. I still have very important things to do. I'll write a letter to you later." "Huh? Write a letter?" Jiang Chun was stunned for a moment. Weren't they talking about him leaving? Why did it suddenly jump to the letter-writing segment? When Jiang Chun thought of the money on the stove today, she thought that the other party must be planning to send her the money again for tonight's meal, so she smiled and rejected him. "The 0.5 yuan you gave me is enough. You don't have to send me money anymore." Cui Jin smiled and reached out to rub Jiang Chun's head as he said softly, "Hurry up and go back. It's not easy to walk back when it's dark." Jiang Chun had only been rubbed on the head by an elder before, so when she was suddenly touched by a member of the opposite sex who was about her age, her ears burned. She didn't dare to look at him directly anymore. She picked up the lunchbox and placed it in the basket. Then, she carried the kerosene lamp and ran away without even saying goodbye. As Cui Jin watched Jiang Chun's fleeing figure, he laughed helplessly. "I seem to have been a little too anxious, but I have no choice. After all, I've been single for 25 years, but I finally met a girl I'm attracted to. I can't let her slip away." After Jiang Chun ran home in one breath, her heart was racing. For a moment, she couldn't tell if it was because she was in too much of a hurry or because of his actions. When Yu Bing returned with the books, she saw Jiang Chun sitting there in a daze with her hands supporting her head. Then, Jiang Chun suddenly smiled. This was a very rare side to Jiang Chun. After Yu Bing arrived beside Jiang Chun quietly, she suddenly waved her hand in front of Jiang Chun's eyes. Jiang Chun was so frightened that her body trembled. Then, she suddenly came back to her senses and clutched her chest as she said, "You almost scared me to death." Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much. 240 The feeling of like. Yu Bing squeezed beside Jiang Chun on the chair and asked, "What are you thinking about?" Jiang Chun definitely couldn't tell the truth, so she could only change the topic. "I'm thinking about the college entrance examination you mentioned." After Yu Bing heard Jiang Chun's reply, she smiled at Jiang Chun. "You're changing the topic? Do you think I'm that gullible? You were smiling so bashfully just now." Jiang Chun retorted without thinking, "Nonsense. How could that be possible?" Jiang Chun's reaction made Yu Bing feel that she was hiding something from her. Yu Bing thought of the shy smile she had seen before entering. Jiang Chun was definitely in love. Yu Bing rubbed her chin with her fingers and began to recall the male workers Jiang Chun interacted with every day. No matter how she thought about it, she couldn't think of a single suspicious person. However, Yu Bing had been busy recently, so Jiang Chun might have interacted with that person at some other time. The more Yu Bing thought about it, the more she felt that it was possible. She raised her eyebrows at Jiang Chun and asked with a confused expression, "Who exactly is that man?" When Jiang Chun saw Yu Bing's mischievous expression, she patted her arm with a smile and said, "Don't make wild guesses." Although Yu Bing looked relaxed and gossipy, she was very worried about Jiang Chun's marriage in this life. Although Jiang Chun had avoided Sun Yu, she didn't know who Jiang Chun's husband would be in the future. Thinking of this, Yu Bing said to Jiang Chun seriously, "Jiang Chun, neither of us have much love experience, but when the two of us get together, our brains are better than one person's. What can't you make up your mind about? Don't not tell me it's because you're shy. Marriage is a lifetime thing. You can't be anxious. You have to investigate the other party carefully." When Jiang Chun heard Yu Bing's words, she lowered her eyes for a moment before saying slowly, "What do you think it's like to like someone?" Yu Bing thought of her marriage with Yan Yan. It wasn't necessarily true that she liked Yan Yan. It was more that Yan Yan had been attentive to her at that time, and she was probably too desperate for love, so she had fallen into the trap the other party had dug. It wasn't because she liked him, but that she wanted to obtain the other party's approval and please him. Yu Bing could only answer Jiang Chun's question based on the television dramas she had watched in her previous life. When you like someone, you keep thinking about that person and your emotions are affected by that person's actions. Jiang Chun was even more confused after hearing this. After all, she had only known him for half a day. She had not had the chance to verify the first half, but the second half. Her emotions were indeed affected by the other party's actions tonight. However, now that she thought about it, she had not even seen the other party's appearance clearly, so this couldn't be considered her liking him. When Yu Bing saw Jiang Chun's slightly confused gaze, she knew that the two of them had yet to confirm their feelings. Hence, she said to Jiang Chun earnestly, remember, no matter how much you like someone, you have to put yourself first. You have to love yourself first, and only then will others love you. Jiang Chun nodded. After a heart-to-heart chat, Jiang Chun slowly calmed down. Thinking that the other party would leave tomorrow and she didn't have to send food anymore, she threw tonight's matter to the back of her mind. The two of them began their study session for the college entrance examination. Yan Yin had become much more attentive to Yu Yin recently, but Yu Yin was very dissatisfied with Yan Yin's sudden appearance in front of her adoptive parents. He almost messed up her plan. Therefore, after sending her adoptive parents away, Yu Yin no longer treated Yan Yin as well as before. Yan Yin was completely dumbfounded. He only thought that Yu Hai and Li Xian were too strict and that he didn't meet their requirements, so they didn't let Yu Yin come into contact with him. No matter what the reason was, after knowing Yu Yan's family background, Yan Yin wouldn't let go of the springboard that could help him escape this rural place. Looking at Yu Yin, who was acting so cold to him, Yan Yin could only suppress the frustration in his heart and curry favor with Yu Yin. Yu Yin, I just wanted to perform well in front of your parents. Are they dissatisfied with me? Yu Yin was very annoyed at this moment, so she said impatiently, let's talk about our matters later. I'm tired now, so I'm going back to the dormitories to rest first. Yu Yin meant what she said. In terms of geographical location, marrying Yan Yin would allow her to be closer to her biological parents, so she was quite satisfied with Yan Yin, but she had to use this to teach Yan Yin a lesson. Otherwise, if he let anything slip in front of her adoptive parents next time, she might not be able to smooth things over. As for how to teach him a lesson, she would think about it after she rested. However, Yan Yin didn't think that way at all. Subscribe and read more novel to help us update chapter quickly. Thank you so much.